What's with all these badass women in movies and TV who still need to be rescued by men? Or the ones who can defeat armies of muscle-bound henchmen bare-handed, but have to do it in skin-tight suits and high heels? And what's up with those badass women who never wanted or needed a man until our suave hero sexed her up, and then she dies? Welcome to the Outrider Podcast's 7-part series, Problematic Badass Female Tropes. I'm your host, Jason Quinn Malott, and I'll be talking with the writer, performer, and all-around badass who identified these tropes, my friend Jenn Zuko. So strap on some pasties and a merkin, and let's do this thing. So here we are.
Oh, yes, we are.
To segue into... from the color red into tonight's topic. Here
red,
we are.
The blood of angry men.
So here we are. It's our final episode for the Outrider Podcast, our problematic badass female tropes. Tonight we're here for Jenn's vagina.
We are only here for my vagina.
We're here for Jenn's vagina.
That's like Zuko's tits, but it's a little bit more intense.
Right. And of course, that is the topic, the actual title of the problematic badass female trope is, I'm only here for my vagina. Now, so, or according to the cats, you're only here for me, pussy.
You're only here for the pussy. You're only here for my pussy.
Shush. Not you.
I can't hear them myself.
That's okay.
So.
I can hear them, and she's right at my chair, being mad at me. She wants either on the chair with me or wants me to play with her.
She's like, you're only here for the pussy.
I know.
And she's like, I mean cats.
Okay, now shut up. So.
She's so cute, though. Aww.
I know. They're both adorable. I came home today to. One of them or both of them had gotten into the cupboard where I keep all of my spare plastic grocery bags. And they were just scattered all over the apartment.
Yep. Cats love those things, man.
Oh, these little animals. So the basic thrust of the trope is you have a badass female character who is only here to establish the sexual prowess and dominance of your male hero. And once he conquers this badass woman with the power of his dong,
he's the only one who can.
He's the only one who can. Mm-hmm. Because that's all the badass, potentially evil henchman ladies need is a good deep dicking.
That's right. That's right. She was just waiting for the right man to come along and deep dick her in the right way.
It's the Chasing Amy version of.
It's the Chasing Amy. Yep. It's the badass, and the more badass she is, doesn't matter, because what that actually means is the more badass he is, because he's able to, get
conquer
in
her
badassness
pants. with his dongus.
That's right. That's succinct. Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, what about the sub-trope that's part of this trope?
Oh, I used to be a lesbian thing?
No, it's called Oops, I'm Not Gay After All, but yes. It has to do with that same thing of,
right.
Oh, she was just waiting for the right man to come along, or the only man that could possibly.
Because the right superhero man, whether it's James Bond or whatever, it's the magic penis.
The magic penis. Yeah, the magic penis. And we always want some kind of weird subtitle, right?
Right.
I think the magic penis.
The magic penis.
My vagina is only here for your magic penis.
Yeah.
We've gone from douche canoes to magic penises. It's been quite a journey. But yeah, so that's the basic idea, is that there, like, any kind of sexual autonomy, any kind of sexual equality, any desires or prowess or promiscuity or anything like that the female character possesses doesn't actually matter. It means nothing. It's all about the male hero's sexual prowess, and the more the stronger, the more interesting, the more intelligent, the more badass the female is, that's the more cool and strong and all that stuff the male is for being able to dominate her, and he's the only one who can. Which is the oops, I'm not gay after all, which is where that comes in, which is like, oh, I've been saying that I'm gay this entire story, but no, now that you're here, I was just kidding. I am Sherlocked instead.
Well, it's the basic assumption that yes, you know, for in all things, a woman can be equal to a man, except she doesn't have a penis, and once she gets one, it's all over.
Right, it's like she can't be. She's not the one to be dominating. She's not the dominant one. She can't be, and that's why the subtrope is so insidious. Is that, you know, a lesbian in this kind of a story scenario has no use for a male. She's not going to be dominated by him sexually. So, you know, and so that's not allowed. So in these stories, what happens is she switches at the very end. And I use Pussy Galore and Goldfinger as my main example. But then I'm like, well, of course, that's from a book that was written in the 50s and a movie that was made in the 660. I haven't IMDb it. So I'm like, okay, well, then there was that Scandal in Belgravia episode of the BBC Sherlock series that did exactly that thing.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That was 2014? That wasn't too long ago.
Yeah, there's this.
Of course, you can complain about Stephen Moffat all you like, when lots of people do, but that's the whole thing. I mean, she even says it. Like Goldfinger, Pussy Galore in the book does say it outright that she is a lesbian, that she chose lesbianism in order to protect herself from men, and that she was literally just waiting for the right man to come along, which is horrible.
But that also operates on that false assumption that somehow homosexuality is a choice.
Right. Or that, you know, hey, all you need is the right man. And there's that whole thing about, oh, so you're a lesbian, so you're saying no to me. Well, that's just because I haven't pursued you hard enough. That's just because, you know, if you're a real man, then you're going to pursue her and pursue her and pursue her and pursue her until the no turns into a yes. Yep. A male hero character in this case doesn't take no for an answer. And you look at this is not the female badass type trope, but you'll see this trope in a non-badass kind of way in rom-coms all the time.
Oh yeah, Chasing Amy is the total rom-com version of this.
It's she says no until she says yes, and you keep trying and you keep pursuing her. And it's the stalking is romance prescription of, you know, she's only saying no because she's supposed to. It's the baby, it's cold outside syndrome. Oh, I'm a good girl, so I'm not supposed to tell you that I want sex. I'm not supposed to be good at sex. I'm not supposed to have had it before. You know, it's that kind of thing. It's like, so no, I really can't stay. That's that whole thing. It's like good girls never say they want it, even if they do. Right. And they're not supposed to want it. So you as a male are supposed to pursue the coy female, because if she says no, she really doesn't mean it. She's just playing hard to get. And the harder she is to get, the more triumphant the male will be when he gets her. Right. In the end.
And bisexuality doesn't seem to exist in this trope. The possibility that there could...
I kind of talk about that a little bit in the article, actually. I talk about it when I talk about the subtrope, the oops, I'm not gay after all. It's kind of not really a sub-trope, but it's kind of a branch of that, which is the I'm bi, but of course you're the one for me. And yes, you're allowed to watch me kiss a girl because that's your reward for being so persistent. Right. So, I mean, you see that in Dodgeball. You see that in comedies in particular. But so there is that. The bisexuality in that case just turns into oh, this is just a really cool, titillating thing that's sexy for you as a male to watch. Right. It's not anything that has to do with a female's sexual autonomy, sexual desires.
But it seems
she's subservient to the male.
It seems to me, though, that when you do get into that, you know, I'm bi, but you're the guy for me, and you get to watch me kiss the girl as a reward. That does seem to me, you know, that's buried down in there. That's way down there. That seems to me the kind of the least bad of the versions, and that it does not necessarily deny her sexuality.
Well, sure it does. It means that her sexuality is all about his desires and nothing to do with hers.
Maybe.
I mean,
I guess it would depend. I guess it would depend on the context of the show or the story.
Right.
Because that's the thing, is that's something that I've heard about on the Savage Lovecast with, is you have sometimes that even in the gay community, when a bisexual person settles on a opposite sex life partner, they get kind of shunned by their solidly gay people. Oh, you really weren't that anyway.
That happens both directions with bi people.
Yeah.
It's like you just make a decision.
Right. It's
no.
like if you're bi, then you can never make a decision, because if you do, you're going to be ostracized by somebody.
Or it's like, if you're bi and you make a heterosexual monogamous choice, then that means you're always going to be cheating on that person.
Right.
Or if you make a same-sex choice, a homosexual choice, then same
You're
thing
always
is
going to
true.
be cheating on someone. Yeah. And there's no.
Which, speaking as a person who's a nerd and not very socially adept and a bi, I will tell you that it doesn't mean that you get to fuck twice the number of people. It means you get rejected by twice the number of people. It really isn't any easier.
Yeah.
To get laid.
That's when you got to probably think about, investing the time and the energy and the emotional space into, something like having an open relationship or being poly. Right?
I tried that. That did suck.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. A lot of that depends. That also depends on the dynamic. I have some friends who are open and poly, and they work at it, and it works for them.
Yeah. Me too.
And it just depends on the people.
It's mostly talk.
Right. You got to spend a lot of time flapping your gums, and that's why it's really not my thing. I figure I could be in an open relationship where, the woman was allowed to do whatever, but me, it'd be like, okay.
Oh, right.
I'm great. It's great in theory that I would, oh, look, there's someone I can go do that, but I probably never would, because it's like, it's the same problem I'm having with the idea of a relationship right now. It's like, I'm talking to the shrink about it. Here, I'm telling this
hard enough.
I'm telling this on the podcast where everybody can hear it, but I'm talking to a shrink about this stuff. And it's like, do I even want to bother getting into a relationship right now? Because, oh my fucking God, every time I think about getting into a relationship, it's like, not that again.
It's a lot of work. Do
I have to tell that story about me? Do I have to explain this again?
And a multiple person relationship is that much more. It's exponentially more work.
Right.
I will say this is just my own experience. So listeners, please don't at me. But
I don't think anybody listens, but that's okay.
No one's going to at me. But having been poly for about 5 years, it works on paper. It's a nice idea in theory, right?
Right.
But in practice, it is so exhausting, and I was being constantly hurt.
Yeah.
And there's just, even with the ones that were air quotes going okay, it's just not. Yeah, monogamy is just. Dare I say easier?
No,
I mean, I'm in a monogamous relationship with a difficult
It's not really
human,
easier.
but,
it's a different kind of hard, right?
Okay. We're often in the weeds now about being poly.
Right. Right.
It doesn't really.
To me, all relationships are hard, and I would be doing okay to manage one, and then to have to manage more than one.
It's exponentially more difficult, is what it is. I will tell you that, having done it.
For me, it would that be. I know
it was for me too.
And I think that has a lot to do with our personality, but.
True.
That's opposed
true.
to the open mind. Yeah, because to the open mindedness of the thing. But anyway, that's, I don't know. Was to wrap that back to the whole thing. Is that my
interesting tangent.
My thing was basically when you get down into that weeds, into the sub trope,
mm-hmm.
right? That one's the the least problematic of the problematic ones.
I don't know. I think it's the same. It's the same idea. Which the idea is that the sexual autonomy of the female doesn't exist. It's all about the male's desire.
Right. But like I said,
which
I think
all of them are.
I think more than the other two, the higher versions of the trope, that one you have to really work hard to make that one seriously problematic. I mean, you have to be a really kind of a sexist twat to make that one problematic, because I think context in that one is context. The way the story is told will make that sub trope a little bit more gray than the other two.
No, because it's the being with the woman is a reward for the man's persistence and the man's desire. Well, it again has nothing to do with the female. I mean, just look at the story arc in Dodgeball. So you have the running joke that the main female love interest, she's a badass in that particular movie.
Right. That
she's a lesbian. That's a continued joke. They make all kinds of dyke jokes and lesbian jokes and demeaning jokes, meaning that the lead male, the hero, can't have her because she's a lesbian. He keeps saying she's not a lesbian. She's not a lesbian.
Right.
So it's this whole running joke, right, throughout the entire movie. Then at the end, we think that they have a romantic connection. We're not sure. The male hero is convinced that he now is going to get the girl. At the end, when they're all triumphant and heroic, she sees a woman in the audience and goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're here." And they have this big, deep kiss. Mm-hmm. So then all the men especially the hero in the movie go, "Oh man." He's like, "Oh, you were right. She is a lesbian. Damn it." And she goes, "I'm not a lesbian." And she turns to him and she goes, "I'm bisexual." And then she deep kisses him.
Right.
So what that does is it completely negates whatever that relationship was that she had with that woman.
Right.
It makes that kiss all about the gaze of the men that were watching. And she still chooses the man. She doesn't choose the woman.
Does she, though?
Yes. Yes, she ends up with the male hero.
Right.
The woman that comes back, she's like, "Oh my God, I thought you were in Guam." And they have this deep kiss only so that the men can watch them do that. And then it's actually like almost a cap on that running joke where at the end it's like, "Oh, she's even hotter now that we know that she's bi." But it's all about the man's desire. It has nothing to do with what she wants, has nothing to do with her sexuality. It has to do with the man's desire for her. Does that make sense? Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, I do understand what you're saying, but I'm thinking that, like I said, a lot of it's going to depend upon the story context, and I'm hesitant to call the dodgeball one exactly on par with that trope. Also, part of what I find a little hard to kind of, well, not hard, to a little disturbing. Maybe that's not the right word.
Just describe what you're feeling.
Well, okay. Now, on the topic of persistence, this is one where I think really it comes down to degree, if that makes sense, right? So there is the persistence that borders on obsession, on stalking, on aggression.
Yeah. The character in The Notebook that's like threatening to kill himself. He's like climbing up on the Ferris wheel, right?
Right. And there's the Hollywood shorthand of that kind of persistence, which you mentioned in the article about the, kiss her till she likes it. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then because there is an honest and a romantic degree of persistence that is acceptable, right?
And there's also the other thing too, which is another problem, which is a branch of this, which is that a lot of times with these movies, especially with our rom-coms that we're talking about, we as the audience see more about the woman, the female character, and what she's going through
right.
than the male character does. Like, let's just take Say Anything, for example.
Okay.
I was watching a video about this just the other night. Now we know that she's being pressured by the main love interest. She's being pressured by her father to not go out with this guy.
Right.
But she wants to, though.
Right.
Now we know this, but that male character doesn't know that.
Right.
And so that end part where he has the ghetto blaster above his head and it's in your eyes and it's so like romantic. It's actually kind of, this is where we get into a problem, because then young men are going to go, oh, that's romantic.
Right.
Because they, as an audience member, see that the girl actually does want him.
Right.
Whereas that character has the character is just being fucking creepy. The character has no idea. All the character knows,
right.
all the character knows is that she's told him no. She's told him in no uncertain terms, never speak to me again.
Right.
And if he's like, no, she doesn't mean that, and then he does that shit, and he plays her the song that they had sex to for the first time, that's fucking creepy. Now, it's not as creepy to us because we as an audience know what she's thinking too, but that character doesn't know that. And so that's where we get into all this, like when young people try to emulate this.
Right. Right.
Women try to be like, oh, I have to play hard to get or he's not going to be interested in me. Boys try to be like, oh, I need to just keep asking when she says no, because that's what you do. Right.
Right.
And so it's all these wrong fucking messages.
Right.
It's like such wrong messages. This is where we get the incels.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I agree. I absolutely agree. The guys that, and well, you also get the incels from this understanding of the friend zone, and it's like,
oh yeah,
right,
and it's feeling of being entitled, right?
And well, the thing is that when I first wisened up to the whole thing, because I remember being young and stupid and thinking, oh my God, I've been put in the friend zone, how horrible. And then somewhere in my maturity, I realized, wait a minute. This idea, and this is a uniquely entitled male idea, that every woman is potentially available to us. And so, therefore, in the men's...
You're entitled
to every woman. So basically, what the incels operate from is a base that they believe that everybody exists in a fuck zone, and then you get ejected from the fuck zone.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And then that's their fault, not yours.
But they blame the women for ejecting them from the fuck zone. Well, exactly. and the truth of the matter is that we're all in the friend zone. That's where you start. That's the base of operations, right?
Yeah.
That's it. That is the world. Yeah. The world is the fucking friend zone, and you get plucked out of it into
not the fucking friend. That's a whole different thing. That's what we're talking about.
That's a different move. But the thing is that you get plucked out of the friend zone to enter into the fuck zone.
Right.
And you do that by not being a creepy, obsessive, abusive, entitled douche nozzle. That's how you get out of the
canoes.
That's how you get
We're
plugged
back at the douche
right.
canoes.
That's how you get plucked out of the friend zone into the fuck zone, is by being a decent fucking human being.
Well, and honoring the other human as a human being, which a lot of, especially the incel guys, can't do for women. They are not raised to think of women as other human beings,
entitled.
As equals.
They think they are the epitome of the world, of humanity, and so therefore everything is there to serve them.
And women are not equal people. They're not humans. They're vessels for their semen. That's literally how a lot of these guys are being raised.
Exactly. They are there for male pleasure and fantasy fulfillment, and
they're only there for their vagina.
Right. I think I would actually phrase the trope as, I'm only here because of my vagina.
Oh, that's kind of what it means, but that word choice is more clear. Yeah.
Right. Because you could read that line, I'm only here for my vagina, as coming from the woman.
Right.
Right. and saying, I'm here for this, take care of this, da-da! And that's not what's going on. It's
I'm only here because of my vagina. No, that makes sense.
I'm only here because I have a vagina.
Yeah. Or because of sex.
Right.
In particular.
So I would change that.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Because.
The word because. Yeah, no, that's clearer. Yeah, thank you. Yay, writers.
Yay, writers and editors. Right. And that's, but then that brings me back. And that's the thing that I think that's why, and I think that's at the heart of my caginess around that sub trope. Because particularly when you mentioned the dodgeball thing, is that he's persistent. Who's the main character in that? Vince Vaughn, is that who that is? Or
yeah, what's his name? Peter LaFleur.
Yep. He's persistent, but he's not creepy persistent, because the creepy persistent is
the bad guy, White Goodman.
Yeah.
Which is great because they are actually married and had a 2-year-old child at the time, which is so great to watch them interact.
Right. So he's actually the creepily persistent one. And Vaughn's character is not.
Well, if you look,
he's willing to accept the fact. I mean, throughout most of it, he's like, oh no, she's not gay. She's not gay. She's not gay. She kisses the woman. He goes, oh, I guess she must be gay. And he's ready to just give up on it. So he's not as entitled as you might think he seems to be, at least from my reading of it. You know, he's persistent because he likes her. When she kisses the girl, he's like, oh, I guess she is gay.
Well, shit.
Wah, wah. And then she kisses him and it's like, oh, and right. You know, so I see where your argument goes with it, but also it's kind of, for me, it's that it's trying to navigate that line between, to find that acceptably persistent versus creepily persistent. Where is that border land?
Yeah, and how does it? Because we as women still are being taught to say no when we don't mean it. So like, how do you even navigate that? Especially with the Me Too thing. Like, how do you as a man then even know how to flirt? Right.
And I think maybe this is kind of, and also there's a certain amount of that whole persistent thing has a certain amount of personal angle for me. Because I'm the kind of guy who can't take yes for an answer.
And
right?
This is why you're in therapy.
Yeah. Because, that's the thing. The creepy persistent guy has been told, well, no means yes.
Right.
You just have to keep pushing.
But you grew up amongst women.
And yeah, I grew up amongst women, and no means no, and yes means no.
Right.
Because
yes might mean no because I'm too scared or whatever. Or yes
might
mean maybe.
Might actually mean no because she feels compelled to say yes, but she wants to say no. So
Right.
Don't do anything.
Yeah.
Well,
were we recording last time when you and I were talking about how we came out of age amongst the opposite gender?
We may have. I don't know.
Were we still
it's hard
recording?
to tell. Usually we get.
Anyway, it's kind of fascinating.
Usually we get about to that hour mark, and I wrap it up, and then we talk for another 2 hours. So it's like, because that's
anyway,
sometimes
that's why. Because we're talking about last time about how I came of age amongst men. Like I went through all the male coming of age like things, and then you were like, I did the exact opposite. I came of age among women.
Right. Or
and
other,
so this is why
or other guys in theater.
Right. But I mean, my point is that's why you are saying you can't take yes for an answer, because you grew up that way. You are so used to women being human beings, being your equals, and you are privy to all of the complicated shit that goes within what means yes and no and all that stuff.
And all I ever hear is horror stories about guys, how horrible guys are, and I'm not, and I don't. That's been the whole thing since I was a kid. Am I the horrible monster that women say men are? Or
That's
am
the constant question,
not?
Right?
I don't feel like a monster, but I have a penis and I'm a guy, and all guys are monsters.
And you're heterosexual.
And if
and you're white.
if all guys are monsters and I'm a guy, then I must be a monster, but I don't feel like a monster, but I have to be a monster because I'm a guy.
You're not only a guy, you're a white heterosexual.
Straight white male. I am the devil. Male. I am the devil.
But you're not.
Well,
but you're now you're fucking like neurotic though because of it, right? Because it's so complicated. What do you do? What do you even do? Like, how do you even begin?
It is and it isn't complicated, right? You know, because the thing is though is that this is the thing that minorities in particular have to learn to do, in which white men are uniquely unpracticed in doing. And that is separating society's generalized claims about people who look like you versus your actual self.
I see.
And being able to draw that line, to have what basically amounts to a dual consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. To be aware of the broad generalizations that society has about you, and
prejudices and
stereotypes, all the bad stuff, all the stuff that's not you, and being able to put that in one compartment anytime somebody says something, and still manage to be, and then at the same time still manage to be a functioning, somewhat sane human being, you know, and this is something that especially the African American community is well practiced at in this culture.
And there's a lot of rage involved.
Exactly.
But that also goes wrong sometimes.
And it's absolutely astounding to me that, you know, that they can live that way. And it's unfair.
Yeah, it is.
It is a total injustice. And white men are starting to get just a tiny, tiny fraction of a taste of what it's like to live that life. And they're going fucking bonkers ape shit.
Oh, they're going ape shit. They're fucking shooting things up.
Because they can't deal with that. And that's...
yeah, like welcome to how it is to live in a fucking stereotypical
Welcome to how the
world.
Rest of the fucking world lives, you fucking douchebag.
Right. Douche canoes. We're back to the douche canoes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's... And I understand on some levels... Let me see if I can rephrase that. I understand, particularly when we talk about the primary version of this trope, how insidious that is. Because, you know, you take that, it's that same sense of entitlement that leads to racism, that leads to this kind of sexism in this thing. And now, granted, you know, James Bond is a charming, dashing spy guy. And he's coming across, you know... And, of course, this is all fantasy, and character development's a little on the light side in all of these. Oh, yeah,
totally.
And...
I mean, I love James Bond, too. Let's not misunderstand my writings of these tropes,
and,
too.
You know, and the thing is that it's been established from day one. It's been established by the actors and by Ian Fleming's books and by the screenplays that James Bond has a certain magnetism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And of course, he's dealing in a world that is beyond the ordinary to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's what I call technology magic when I talk about fantasy and sci-fi in my writing classes.
Right. Now, if Bond, I think even in that world of the Bond universe, if Bond were to try to put his moves on someone who was not connected to, tied to, or related to the mystery that was going on, or the bad guys. Let's say if it was a secretary other than Moneypenny, if he pulled any of the moves that he pulls on Moneypenny with another secretary in the same building, he would get slapped down quick.
Oh no, that's Holly Goodnight. It happens with her.
You know, and
he does it with everybody.
Yeah, he does it with everybody. And
it's Holly Goodnight. She's another one.
Yeah.
And he never gets with Moneypenny.
No, he never does. She knows how to play the game better than he does, I think.
And you'd also think about the two times where he ends up with a woman who is his equal, as far as smarts, as far as savviness, as far as being sexually autonomous, as far as being hot, smoking hot.
Right. Aside from
there's twice when it happens, as far as I can tell.
Which 2 times?
Vesper.
Okay.
In Casino Royale.
Oh, in the Daniel Craig versions.
Well, in the book too.
Right.
And I forget. Oh, I'm such a bad Bond fan. What the hell is her name? He actually ends up marrying her on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Oh, Tracy. I was just
Tracy,
watching this.
Thank you.
Tonight, actually. I was watching last night and tonight, trying to watch it. I fell asleep last night.
So in this kind of thing where she's still a Bond girl, she's still only there for her vagina. Only there because of her vagina.
Because of her vagina.
That's much clearer. Yeah, thank you. What happens after the sex finally happens? Because she's so strong and she is so sexually autonomous and she is so hot and she is so all that stuff that Bond is. Once they finally bone, what happens to her?
Well, the bad guys kill her.
They die. Well, in Vesper's case, she kills herself.
She did?
Yep. Particularly in the book, but in the movie she does too.
I'm trying to remember the movie. It's been a while since I've seen it.
And in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, she does get killed. She gets shot by the bad guys. Right. But Vesper Lynd kills herself.
Why? Why did she kill herself? Because
if we're looking at this trope, it's because she ended up boning Bond, and then her occupation's gone. Yep. She's no longer necessary, so she dies. That's really why.
It's kind of a fridging. She dies so that Bond
totally a fridging, yeah.
Can have the next motivation to go on and do his thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep, same thing with the one he actually ends up marrying, which is pretty huge for Bond to get married to one woman. What? Has to be Diana Rigg, of course. Duh. Right? God, who else would it be?
So do you think that's why the Living Daylights failed? Because the
Living Daylights failed for so very many reasons.
But this was the one where aside from Russia with Love, they stuck Bond with one woman throughout the whole thing.
I don't know about that, because it seems like the Bond girl always goes away before the next movie. Well, like, he never has a relationship that goes to the next movie.
True. I mean,
to me, that's just kind of the same pattern.
Well, that's just it. You know, if you're a spy and you run into the same person in the next story, your cover's blown.
Yeah. Right. Well, even though your name is still fucking James Bond, so who cares? But
yeah, but they have ways of dealing with that.
But that's just the pattern of the Bond girl, which is why the Bond girl is this sort of trope, which is, it's just literally, it's not even like, you're not even trying to make it anything else in the Bond film, which is why I bring up the two that might be exceptions, just because they seem to be more important to him, but they really aren't, because they die.
Yeah. But just about
if there's any chance that she could last beyond the initial boning, she won't.
Just about every Bond girl then is there because of her vagina.
Oh, absolutely. Every single one. Yep, everyone. From the very minor ones that he just ends up fucking in the very beginning of the movie to the major ones that actually have like a relationship with him. Yeah. They're all that.
Grace Jones was only there because of her vagina.
I know. Can you believe that?
What?
I know.
Let's see, who else?
It's true. And think about how badass and weird and strong and, Grace Jones with her androgynous kind of like gender fluid fucking pre-gender fluidity. I mean, God, what a strong badass. And then by the time she bones Bond, she is nothing. Like, she disappears. Well, of course she ends up dying.
She ends up dying to save Bond.
Right, of course.
Because the dicking was so good.
Do you think she would do that if she were the climbing the Eiffel Tower, jumping off with her flying squirrel shit on? That person would not have sacrificed herself for Bond. It's just because she got the dick. She got the Bond dick. So, same thing with Pussy Galore. Pussy Galore had nothing to fuck to do with that asshole.
And then
until judo, the roll in the hay turned into a roll in the hay.
The judo in the barn. Yeah.
And then she's just like, okay, all of my lesbian pilots are at your behest.
How then do you thwart this trope? If you have a male character, a male hero, who meets his proverbial match.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because that's the thing about, the Grace Jones character and Pussy Galore.
Vesper.
And Vesper and Jinx, Halle Berry's
Jinx, yep.
Character.
Mm-hmm. The Lucy Liu, not Lucy Liu, sorry.
Michelle Yeoh.
I'm thinking, well, I was thinking Lucy Liu and Johnny Lee Miller in Elementary.
Uh-huh.
So you either do that.
Let's not forget Michelle Yeoh from, what was it? It was one of the Pierce Brosnan Bond movies.
Oh, we're still talking Bond girls. Oh, yeah, well, mm-hmm.
Right.
But so you're asking what are the solutions to
right.
this? So I'm thinking the one
because
there
you would think
solutions.
that Michelle Yeoh would be actually a way to solve the I'm only here because of my vagina trope, because she doesn't die in the end. She is Bond's equal throughout the whole movie. That's kind of the thing.
Yeah, but she goes away. She's not his equal because she's only there because of her vagina for that movie, and then she's not his equal anymore. He has nothing to do with her ever again.
But she's a communist spy and he's a Western spy. Why would they come up against each other again unless there was another?
Why are they boned to begin with?
Well, because they're both spies. They might die tomorrow, and they're highly trained and physically fit, and they're both fucking beautiful. I mean, why wouldn't they?
Hot, right?
Right.
So so you're asking what to do instead. So here's two solutions.
Why is Michelle Yeoh not
I have two solutions. Okay. One is that they don't bone. They're equals.
That just takes all the fun out of it.
Well, look. That's why I brought up.
Okay.
That's why I brought up Lucy Liu and Johnny Lee Miller in the show Elementary, which is the modern Sherlock in New York.
Right.
They are absolute best friends. They're business partners. They're equals. They don't bone. They love each other deeply. They're partners in all ways except for the boning part.
Right.
And they are portrayed as equals, and they're, they improve each other. They grow together as characters. So that's one way.
Right.
Why do you have to have it be a fucking romantic connection? Why does it have to be that way? Why? You know very well that you have very intense, gorgeous, loving relationships with women that you don't need to necessarily bone. I know that's really hard to think about right now because you're in a relationship.
No,
but my point is,
I don't find that hard to think about at all. In fact,
so that's one way, is to not have them bone. They're not that kind of relationship. They are equals. They love each other. They're intimately connected, but they're not boning. So it's not because of her vagina. It's because of them as people, it's them as characters, them as rich, partners. So there's that way. The other way is to actually have them be fucking partners. Yes, they're boning, but that's only one of the things that they do, and they are equals, and they are, or whatever kind of partners they are, whether they're married or whether they're business partners, whether they, see each other. If they're both spies, maybe they see each other every so often whenever they can schedule it, or whatever kind of relationship they have. Make them actual partners. Don't make her disappear just because her vagina opens to him once and that's it. Make them actual equals. Don't kill her at the end.
Right.
Don't forget she existed in the next movie.
Right.
So those are the two ways I would say. Either don't have the vagina be a part of it, or if it is, then have it be an actual partnership. Or, it doesn't even have to be like a marriage. Like maybe if it is this kind of like, okay, so they're both super spies, so they can't be married, they can't live together, they can't, they're both doing all kinds of shit all the time.
Then it's just that Brad Pitt Angelina Jolie movie that broke up their marriage.
Right. Yeah, like that. I mean, that can be fun, but not,
What was that, Mr. and Mrs. Smith? Was that what that was?
Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I haven't seen it actually. I'd like to.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, I'll put that on my list. But you know what I mean? Like actually make her a partner.
Right.
Or even the very minimum. Okay, so those are the two ideal ways. Either A, it's a partnership that has nothing to do with the sex.
Right.
So they're equals. Or if it is about sex, then have them be equals. Like don't kill her off at the end, either literally or figuratively.
Right. So then the Michelle Yeoh thing would fit because they don't kill her off.
No, but she never appears ever again. She's the Bond girl. He fucked her in the movie and she's the Bond girl and that's it.
Yeah. Terry Hatcher was in that one too. She got killed.
That's right. Yeah. Even if it's something like at the very bare minimum, oh, hey, how's it going? Could you get me this information? Nice to hear from you again. You know, like, don't just like disregard her the moment she opens her vagina to the dicking. Like she can to have her.
So like she could have when what was it? It was the last Brosnan one where they had something to do in Korea. They could have had her like helping him with some.
Yeah, just be like, oh, hey, here's some information.
But within the context, within the micro context, within the isolated context of which
to have her
the world is not enough. That's what it was. The world is not enough. In the isolated context of the world is not enough, you still have the problem. I mean, how can you avoid the trope within the confines of a single movie, and still have these two characters who do not have the capacity for an extended relationship?
To have her continue to be a human being after having boned the hero.
Right. But she does.
To not have her be subservient. Well, then maybe she's a good example. I don't remember her as clearly.
Because they get down twice at least, I think.
Yeah, to make that okay would be to either have her be a partner of some kind, or if that's not possible, then to at least continue to have her be a human being.
Right.
And to not have her be subservient in all power to him the moment they bone. Because what often happens, even if those movies are, okay about like keeping her alive and shit, it's still her power ends up going away the moment she bones the hero. She suddenly doesn't have the autonomy. She doesn't have the ins. She doesn't have the information. She doesn't have the power anymore. Mm-hmm. She ends up being like kind of a sidekick to the hero after she fucks him. Right. So just to have her continue to be the person she was before she fucked the hero. Does that am I being clear about that?
Yep. That would be the way to make it better. I think in that case, the world is not enough avoids the trope.
Okay. She doesn't lose all of her power. She doesn't become a minion of Bond's after fucking him.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, they got to take down Jonathan Pryce's whole media empire.
I do remember that. I just don't remember her so well. I remember the motorcycle chase scene, which is fantastic.
And then they fight separately, to take down the boat. And And then, of course, the classic thing, where they're trying to pick up Bond after the whole thing, and he's got the girl there at the end. Yeah, she's pretty much there from the time they team up, on the motorcycle ride until the end when they're, Commander Bond, Commander, and he's like, and they bone on the wreckage of the boat they blew up, right? And at that point, they've finished their mission. Neither one of them has the need to be a badass anymore, and then fade to black and the movie's over.
Right. Okay. Okay. Good. Well, then there you go. Because the other Bond girls, I'm just thinking Bond girls in particular, even if they happen to be strong, smart.
Yeah. No.
Whatever,
I mean,
they lose it all after they fuck Bond.
To spin it a different way, if you fuck Bond early in the movie, well, you're dead.
Yeah, you're dead.
It's a death sentence.
Right, and if you fuck him later in the movie, then you lose all your personality and strength, like Pussy Galore.
But there are some characters that can. There have been a couple. I'd have to go back and I watched it like 2 weeks ago. The World Is Not Enough.
I haven't seen that one in a long time.
And I'm pretty sure that they had 2 encounters.
Cool. Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So I guess that would be the center of avoiding it is to keep the female badass a female badass even after boning the hero.
Sure, right.
That would be the way to do it, and there's a few ways to do it.
There are a lot of Bond movies on Hulu right now, by the way, just in case.
Oh, there are?
Yeah.
Damn it.
Do you not have Hulu?
I do.
Oh yeah, Hulu. It's got a lot of Bond movies on Hulu right now. They have Dr. No on Her Majesty's Secret Service, Moonraker, Thunderball. Thunderball is one of my Thunderball is one of my favorites, and it's on Hulu right now. So
Thunderball's a great one.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I just watched Casino Royale the other day.
Yeah. And of course they had the Timothy Dalton ones. They had some of the Pierce Brosnan ones. The World Is Not Enough. I think GoldenEye was on there.
GoldenEye, classic. Yay, racism and sexism.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I just watched. I recently watched. It was the second Timothy Dalton Bond movie where the drug kingpin kills his Felix, the CIA agent, kills Felix's brand new wife, and feeds Felix to the shark, and he loses a leg. And Bond, resigns from the Secret Service and goes after. And it has a very young Benicio del Toro in it.
That's right.
Oh yeah,
God.
I mean, young looking. I mean, he looks so fucking young. It's like, really? Really? And the only way you can tell it's him, he's so young and he's so smooth faced and pretty. Oh my goodness. The only way you can tell it's him is there's this little inflection to his voice. You're like going, Benicio? Really?
Usual suspect.
Oh man, yeah. So yeah, I was watching that one.
Oh man, that has been a while.
But the Bond movies are a treasure trove of these kind of sexist tropes, and yet somehow they don't really seem.
They do.
Do they? Are they really as offensive as they would?
Oh, they so are. But the thing is that we love them anyway, right?
Right. So why is that? Why is that? Why is it? Why is it that so many of these tropes we can identify? This is something to kind of wrap up the whole series here.
And this is a good point, because this is true for all 7 of the tropes. A lot of these movies are movies I picked because I love them.
Right.
So it's like, yeah. We all love these movies, and that's actually why we should be calling all of them out. And we don't have to stop loving them, but we should at least be clear about what we are being fed and at least understand that.
Right. So how is it? What is it? Because obviously there are movies out there that have used and will continue to use these tropes, and these movies will fail. They will be seen as trash and as garbage. They won't succeed. They won't enter the cultural lexicon. They won't be things that are considered classics. They won't be things that we watch again and again because we get something from them each time we watch. So what is it? What is this thing about these particular movies and these particular tropes? What is the X factor that keeps these movies still relevant despite these insidious tropes?
I'll tell you. It's that one particular word that I use for all of them. That one particular word, badass. Which is why I started writing these articles to begin with. Because you'll have tropes of all kinds. Like I said, the sort of non-badass versions. You have damsels in distress. You'll have Mary Sue. You'll have fridging. You'll have all kinds of stuff that, like you said, are very obvious and won't last and will seem dated later and aren't relevant and people won't love. But the reason people still love all of these is because of that one particular quality, which is the badass. We see this badass character like, damn, that's awesome. Oh my God. Padme is a fucking awesome badass. Holy shit. Imperator Furiosa is incredible. Oh my God, even Marion Ravenwood is such a fucking badass. That's why we love the badasses. We love them. And sometimes we swallow the badass without realizing what's going on underneath it. We don't realize, because it's such a badass type character, we don't notice that the skeleton underneath the badass is actually built on misogyny. I mean, Ripley's a fucking badass. I'm sorry. I loved at least the early Alien movies. I kind of lost interest once it started to get crazy and cloney and all that kind of stuff. But,
Yeah.
I'm not saying by calling all these tropes out that I hate these characters. I mean,
You didn't
okay,
like
maybe
the Alien movie with Winona Ryder in it?
No, I really didn't. I don't know. I love Winona Ryder. God bless the original goth, but I don't know.
She's my age.
I know. It's crazy. We're getting old, dude. Anyway, that's my answer, is that's why. It's because it's this wrapper of strength. It's this badass quality. That's why we love them. Well, that's why we love James Bond movies. It's because these movies are badass. These characters are badass.
Right. But is there also something else, layered on top of, around of, surrounding these tropes that says something else to us?
It's the badass thing. Yes.
Well, I mean, besides that's there are movies that can have ostensibly, that can use these tropes, that have ostensibly badass characters, and yet there's still something about these movies that does not merit rewatching.
What can you come up with an example?
Well, well, no, because I haven't rewatched these damn movies, but I know they're out there because I know I've seen a ton of movies that attempt to employ badass characters.
I mean, I would say that's kind of the core of it. And some movies are better than others, and some books are better than others.
Some movies and some books are better than others, even though they use these tropes. There's something else going on. There's a thing that is.
Well, I mean, just look at maybe it's just a matter of, like you said, degrees. Look at my first article, The Marion Effect. Uh-huh. I have two examples of that.
Right.
One is from a really horrible movie, which I still love, but it's terrible. The other is from a great movie that's just fucking great. But that's both very clear examples of the trope.
Okay, so what makes, in your opinion, what makes Indiana Jones a great movie, and what makes Robin Hood not a great movie?
Well,
despite the tropes,
Well, I mean, that's what you're asking, though. Is as far as the tropes go, why do people still like watching those movies?
No, why do people still like watching these movies despite the tropes?
It's because the trope is closer to being okay. Like Ripley is almost not problematic. Mm-hmm. Katniss Everdeen is that close to not being problematic. She's actually arguably maybe not, depending on what you think of as far as her context goes.
Right.
And so I would say that the better books and movies are the ones that are closer to the actual empowering characters. Mm-hmm. They're closer to the actual badass character being an equal, not having the skeleton of misogyny, not having the systematic sexism in there. All of them do to a certain extent, because that's what our society is like.
Right.
But the ones that are the better ones, the ones that we tend to love more, the more popular ones too, which is actually kind of interesting, are the ones where it's closer to okay.
Right.
Now, as far as why all of us adore James Bond, even the old horrible ones,
because James Bond is nowhere close to being okay.
No, I think Bond is a different thing, because I don't know what that fucking is. I really don't.
and some Bond movies are better than other Bond movies.
Yes, it's true. Yes. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, there's a reason. There's a reason that, we don't watch On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the one with George Lazenby, as often as we watch all the other ones. There's a reason that.
Well, there's a reason we don't watch the Timothy Dalton ones either.
Yeah, why the Timothy Dalton ones. And, I say that with a whole lot of regret, because I love Tim Dalton.
And he looks physically a lot more like the book description too than anyone else.
And he's a fantastic actor. And when you watch him, there are two movies of his that are in my pantheon of great movies that I love. Now, whether they're actually great movies in the scope, whether or not critics like them, or is a whole different story.
No, great movies that you love.
Right. And the first one is, of course, The Lion in Winter.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a very young Timothy Dalton who is incredibly pretty. Oh my
That's
God,
right.
he's pretty in
That's
that
right.
one.
Yep.
He is just astounding. You know, and of course that also has
Great play.
Lawrence. Lawrence. No, not
It's
Lawrence.
Olivier, isn't it? Isn't it Olivier?
Yeah, and Katharine Hepburn and oh fuck, I can't remember his name right now. Hannibal Lecter. Who played Hannibal Lecter?
Oh God, Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins, yes. So it's Anthony Hopkins, and it's got the guy who later went on to play King Arthur in Excalibur.
Oh right. Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember his name. Nigel something, I think. Nigel Terry.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Nigel Terry in it. Anthony Hopkins.
It's a great play too.
Laurence Olivier, Katharine Hepburn, and Timothy Dalton. And I can't remember the guy who plays Jeffrey either, the middle child. But that's my Christmas movie. Everybody were like, oh,
Nice.
Miracle on 34th Street, you know, It's a Wonderful Life. No, fuck you, The Lion in Winter, man.
Well,
That's
Muppet
my
Christmas Carol,
movie. It's just because I'm twisted and wrong. But then the other Timothy Dalton movie that and it's not really the Timothy Dalton movie, he just has a major part in it. But the other movie that I love with Tim Dalton in it is, of course, Flash Gordon.
Flash.
And, you know, some people are like, oh, that's a terrible movie. I go, no, that is beautiful camp. That is, I mean.
It's so bad it's good.
Well, the thing is
Brian Blessed with wings.
Oh my
Brian
God,
Blessed.
isn't it fantastic? Well, the thing is, though, is that, you know, in that era before comic book movies became a thing, you have to remember Flash Gordon was a cartoon strip. And it was a 40s matinee, you know.
Yeah, short movie thing.
Soap opera thing. And the movie, if you sit back and you take a look at the movie within the context of its origins, it rings true to those origins.
Well, that's where Star Wars came from, or one of the many things, but
right.
Like put Flash Gordon together with Akira Kurosawa and you have Star Wars.
Right. And so yes, I mean, in some ways you could probably argue that Flash Gordon movie is, you know, terrible.
Sorry.
You know,
if
you try to hold it up to these standards of realism that movies are supposed to be held to in some fashion.
What all movies are?
I don't know. Sometimes I can't tell what the fuck critics are judging their whole thing on, you know. This is why I argue with them all the time. But the thing is, though, is that, you know, to the core of what Flash Gordon started off as, the movie sticks to it.
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's camp. It's cartoonish. It's comic booky. It's fantastic.
Well, that's why everyone loves the Marvel movie, the Marvel MCU right now.
Right. But and Marvel has a different sensibility than the original Flash Gordon stuff. And if you
I don't know, it's pretty fucking campy. Ever watch Thor Ragnarok? It's really campy.
Right.
It's a lot of campy, and it's actually postmodern because it's in this, you know, day and age, which means it's not only campy, but it's got all kinds of nods,
right,
and allusions with an A, and like all kinds of shit like that. It's totally campy. I'd say it's postmodern campy as opposed to Flash Gordon.
Despite what all the critics say, though, Flash Gordon still remains a movie that people love to watch. And they don't love to watch it to go, oh my God, how awful is that? They love to watch it because...
Oh, kind of.
Well, there is some cheese to it that kind of makes you want to roll your eyes. But, you know, you still fucking cheer on Flash when he's making the assault on Ming
There's
City.
There's a phrase for that kind of thing for music, too, called hot cheese.
Yeah. And
it's that kind of like horrible fluorescent yellow kind of shit that you put on the nacho chips.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But sometimes that's really just really
the liquid
fucking
cheese,
delicious. Right.
But anyway, so yeah, Timothy Dalton was in Flash Gordon.
So my thing with the tropes is that you can pump as much of that nacho cheese onto your shit as you want. That's great. That's actually really good a lot of the time.
So what matters is the sturdiness of your chips.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And making sure that you don't end up with a dry layer of chips with nothing on them at the bottom, which really sucks.
So the thing is, we have to
just
figure out.
Just know what you're eating.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like if you're watching something from the 40s, just know what you're eating. If you're watching like Goldfinger or watching Dr. No, understand what it is that you're seeing. And more importantly, though, if you're watching a contemporary movie.
Right.
And just know what you're seeing. Being like, oh, you know what? Wonder Woman's awesome. I love it. I love everything. I want to cosplay that shit. But I also recognize that there are a couple of problems there. And that's just because of our society. It's because of a lot of different reasons. And so I just need to know that and to talk about it. And the more we talk about it, the more it's going to get better and better. And we'll get more and more characters that come closer and closer and closer to not being problematic at all. And maybe we'll get some characters that aren't at all problematic. And wouldn't that be amazing?
Well, seems like that would be boring.
What? Am I a boring person in real life? Am I a boring human being?
But you're problematic.
Why? Why am I problematic?
Because you have lived a life, and because you have made choices and decisions, and because you make mistakes. And ergo, you are problematic.
And so if you I'm not a trope though.
I am a trope.
This is my point. You're a trope. I'm not. I'm a trope. We should make a movie about us.
So, in other words, what we're saying is...
my point is, like...
What we're saying is that...
It's possible to make amazing...
Don't swallow the load if you don't want to.
Wow! You can choose to swallow the load. It is a lot of protein, from what I hear. But don't get it up your nose, because it really burns. I did that. That happened to me once. And I had a burning nostril for like 3 hours. And I was like, why? I don't think my partner had spicy chilies or anything like that. Like, why is that?
Okay. Did you ever listen to Aisha Tyler's podcast?
Shit. Oh, no, I didn't.
She did this conversation with Will Wheaton that I adore.
She was so great on Tabletop. And
Will Wheaton told this because she had this segment at the end of her shows where, so if you want to go find it, you should still be able to find it on iTunes, but somewhere back there is her interview with Will Wheaton, and you have to find it.
It's her podcast.
Yeah, Girl on Guy.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay.
And she has this interview with Will Wheaton. And at the end of all of her conversations, she has people tell what they call self-inflicted wound stories.
Oh, okay. Oh, he talked about the dick milk, didn't he?
Right. Where he, had gotten.
He's written the dick milk story, and it's such a beautiful story. It's so amazing.
And in the podcast they were talking about how they had worked with this brewing company to like do a beer, and I'm thinking they should do it again the next year, and they never did it, but they should do it again, where they should do a stout,
a milk stout.
It would be Will Wheaton's spicy milk stout, spicy dick milk stout, and.
Oh my God.
Spicy dick milk stout, and they've never done it. It's like, and I think I even wrote to them about it. It's like, you should do that
because they do woot stout like every couple of years. They should do a spicy dick woot stout.
Will Wheaton's spicy dick milk stout.
Oh my God, you're so right.
Because because if you've heard that story from some other route, and I heard it on the Aisha Tyler podcast, then other people have heard it.
I listened to him write about it. He wrote this amazing blog post about it, and it was this beautifully suspenseful, little article about what happened. Oh and it's God, it was so good.
So other people know this story. It's like, I swear, sometimes because I don't have a lot of people around here that listen to all the podcasts that I listen to, I often sometimes think, are those stories? Yeah, I know millions of people ostensibly have download this podcast, but nobody I talked to is like going, yeah, I heard that one. It's
my God, the dick milk.
The dick milk. Oh my God,
it's just because of, Will Wheaton, for everything he's done. He's also an excellent writer. And just the way he wrote about this story, about what happened and how he had to deal with his day. It was so beautifully written. You were like on the edge of your chair reading this little blog post. It was like a 1-page probably article.
Right.
Oh, he's like, I need to explain.
And his wife catching him.
He's like, here's what happened.
In the kitchen with his...
Oh my God. Just the way he gave you certain information. It was like when you and I took Keith Abbott's Bad Business class in grad school. And he's like, okay, so when you know the information is more important than what you know as a reader, when you're writing a mystery story, this is exactly what Wilbin was like. He gave us the right amount of information at the right time. And we were like, what happened next? Oh my God. So by the time he puts his dick in the milk, you're just like, you're just like, oh.
Don't do it, Will Wheaton.
So good. No, don't do it.
Anyway, so here we are. We've reached the end
that was a good tangent.
Of our 7 tropes. And our basic final assumption is don't put your penis in the sippy cup of milk.
Our final assumption is only take the load if you really want to take the load.
No, it's basically pay attention to what you're watching.
Yes.
And know that sometimes these tropes, even though they give us a flawed way of looking at the world, of looking at ourselves.
A false sense of badassery, maybe?
A false sense of badassery. That does not necessarily mean that within the confines of the story, within the context of the story, it hasn't served a purpose. We can challenge that purpose.
And we should.
can criticize that purpose. We can demand better.
And call it out. Yeah, and talk about it. Just have dialogue about it.
But that doesn't mean that we have to take these movies like Indiana Jones or Star Wars.
James Bond.
Well, you can maybe throw some James Bond out the window.
Some James Bond. Not all James Bond.
It doesn't mean we have to take these movies and throw them out because they have this flaw. And I think
just know what it is.
Just know what it is and say, listen, if you're going to do this again in the future, fix it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think here's where the half a bottle of Valpolicella and
I'm doing black ink red wine blend myself tonight.
Yes. And I think this is a lesson that we could probably take and expand into other areas of our lives. We could take this and even expand this. This will be unpopular. I will be atted.
Well, it's how does this affect all the real men and real women and real badass women in the real world?
Right,
how does this affect us?
Well, what I'm getting at though more is how this applies to art in general made by distasteful people.
Oh, interesting. Okay, this is a whole new.
Because that's what in a very
we're
microcosmic.
Up a whole other can of worms now. We need to have another hour of a podcast to talk about this shit.
Well, maybe we will at some other time, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But the point is that these tropes reveal something deep, dark, and problematic, obviously, about the way we entertain ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And about our culture.
And about our culture and the way it's set up and the way it treats us and the way it treats other people, the way it encourages us to be inhumane.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
Now, but we still like these movies. We're still able to take what is bad and set it aside and say, okay.
If we can, and that's what these these articles are about. As long as we can do that, yeah.
And deal with that. So, and that to me seems like a little microcosm of what we're going to do with these movies by, say, Woody Allen or the movies produced by Harvey Weinstein. Okay. Right. These guys have obviously done some things that nowadays we find repulsive, obviously and justifiably and rightly so.
Well, we always did, but now it's coming out into the open.
Right. Now we're no longer allowing it. But then does that invalidate the art?
Well, I mean, look at how many people still love Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass as classics of literature.
And we have to, I guess that the thing is, those, that what that says to me is that we have to take, some people have these problems and they're able to take that problem and channel it into something creative, and that creative thing allows them to express that dilemma in a way that reveals something true about humanity. Right?
Yes.
So Lewis Carroll,
then in their lives, then if they hurt other people, though, then that's something to think about, though. And then, so in this day and age, that's the question of, do we still watch Woody Allen movies, or is that enabling him, or like it's a big question.
Right. And so what then do we attempt to learn? How do we learn? Mm-hmm. Right. So
moving forward, how do we move forward from it, and how do we make it better?
It's great to say, oh, Woody Allen was an asshole, possible kid toucher, chauvinistic, rapey, whatever you want to call it. So yes, I do not want to support his art going forward. But,
does that mean I never want to watch Annie Hall again? Does that mean I never want to see Shadows and Fog?
Annie Hall was immensely important to me for one reason or another. Does his bad behavior invalidate what he was able to say with Annie Hall?
That's a question.
Right.
Shadows and Fog was it for me. That's the Woody Allen movie for me.
That same thing applies to these tropes. Does this trope invalidate the whole of what that movie does for me? Yes, we can demand better, but we cannot rationally demand better if we treat the transgression as a black and white, love it or leave it type of transgression.
Oh, exactly. No, exactly. You're absolutely right about that. Right? I totally agree with that. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because whether we like it or not, sometimes our demons have insight into us more deeply than our angels do. Because our
what you say is we can move forward by demanding better.
Right.
But, and we have we've been talking a lot tonight about James Bond in particular, just because that's
demanding
valid.
Better and demanding conformity.
Just look at the difference between, say, Goldfinger, which is the second movie, James Bond movie ever made, and the other day I saw Casino Royale, the Daniel Craig Casino Royale. Look at the difference between those two movies. Okay, yes, there are all kinds of misogynistic tropes happening in James Bond movies because they're both James Bond movies.
Right.
But look at the difference. Look and see how much people were demanding better. Between Goldfinger, where we had fucking Sean Connery's Bond going, say hello, Dink, say goodbye, Dink, man talk, smacks her on the ass and makes her go on her way.
Right.
That could never happen in a movie today.
Right.
So, I mean, we've come a long way, baby. We still have some ways to go, and we are. And there's a lot of progress going on with the Me Too movement, with everyone talking about different genders. This is fantastic. Doesn't mean that we don't still have work to do. We absolutely do. But I mean, also looking at these tropes is not hating everything that we've always loved.
Right.
It's just looking at it clearly. Just look at it with clear eyes. And as you say, going forward, demand better. But just look at everything that you love with clear eyes. You don't have to stop loving it.
Right.
Just understand what you're eating and just make sure that your chips are hard enough.
Exactly.
So I am just in the very beginnings of writing a new series of 7 tropes.
This will definitely be in there.
And
first one's already out.
Yes, it is. The first one's already out. This series, it's another series of 7, and it is also being published on Writers HQ. That's writershq.co.uk, and they are fantastic. Hi, ladies. I'm still never going to ever spell aluminium like aluminium. It's just going to be aluminum. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just have to. That's a running joke between the. I always have to spell my spellings as British spellings, and that's a running joke. I'm like, I'm never. It's never going to be fucking aluminium ever. Sorry. So anyway, it's a new series of 7 tropes on Writers HQ, and it is called the Problematic Toxic Masculinity Tropes. And I'm doing this as a balance because I noticed as I was writing about the problematic badass female tropes, that is absolutely reflected in the problematic ways that masculinity is being represented.
Absolutely.
So I have started, and my first trope is called Go Big or Go Home, which is about, and so basically the 7 series of problematic toxic masculinity tropes is all about false ideas of strength. Right. And false ideas of what it means to be a real man and how that is damaging to real men in real life. So there are 7 tropes there, and I can describe them to you in a different episode if you want. But the first one's out called Go Big or Go Home. The second one's about to come out soon-ish. It's called Grow a Pair or Boas Don't Cry. And then there will be another 5 after that. So look for those.
By the time this series is released, I'm sure there will be several of the essays will be released, and the link in the show notes will take you to the index page that has all of these essays. So you can start with the very first one, the Marian Effect, and read all the way up to whichever toxic masculinity trope is available when you listen.
At that point.
So.
And then maybe we'll do another podcast series of the masculinity ones.
That's what we're planning on. So
yay.
Go check out the essays on writershq.com and come back and listen to us perhaps in the fall or the winter when we do the next series, because, that's just the way we roll.
It is. It's writershq.co.uk.
Links in the show notes because I'm drinking wine.
And I am too.
Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
The Outrider Podcast is recorded by me, Jason Quinn Malott, and cleaned up by my badass producer, Heather Ann Eden. The songs Choose and Adventure and Break and Mend used in this series are by Wichita-based band Cartwheel off their new EP, Best Days, and are used by permission of the copyright holder, Kristen Chapman. You can get Cartwheel's EP on Apple Music and Spotify, so visit them at www.cartwheel.band.